Italian Football Podcast.
We have to talk about Paul Pogba. It was announced on Thursday that Pogba had been banned for 4 years for doping. Italy's anti-doping tribunal handed Pogba a 4-year ban. He, of course, failed a doping test in August after the opening Serie A game of the season against Udinese, which he'd been on the bench for. DHEA, which can raise the level of testosterone, was found in Pogba's body. And then he had a repeat test, a second sample that also tested positive in October. That led to him being suspended provisionally. And now he has been banned for 4 years. So a few things to discuss here, Nima. First of all, starting from the Juventus point of view, I think as you said last week, and I said also, I wrote a feature about this a few months ago, this now confirms that this is the most disastrous return in football history, isn't it, Nima?
I can't think of anyone that's any worse return. I really can't think of anyone who's returned back to a club and it'd be more disastrous than what we've seen here this time around. Honestly, no. It's absolutely atrocious. Everything that has gone wrong has gone wrong. Everything.
Well, look at the numbers, Nima.
I really don't even know what else to say. It's just everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. His body has completely deteriorated. He was barely fit before the doping suspension, and then that came. It's just been an absolute mess. And if you take into consideration how much they paid for him in wages and how much he's cost them, it's a waste, a complete waste.
Well, he's played just 214 minutes of football for Juventus since joining. I mean, that's two and a bit games, in total. He scored.
And he came last summer, not this summer. That was
the summer of 2022. Yeah. Scored no goals, just the one assist. He's only started one match in his entire second spell at Juventus, a game in which he limped off from injured against Cremonese in the first half.
I mean, the way that Juventus have handled this as well, his injury and Paul Pogba as well, they've messed it.
I blame that more on Pogba, but the injury, like he had the injury. He tried to get fit for the World Cup. He refused. He refused to have an operation, which Juventus wanted him to have an operation. He refused. He wanted to try conservative treatment. That failed. He then was forced to then have an operation, which basically ruled him out for almost the most of the season. He came back towards the end with a few kind of substitute appearances and then got injured again. I blame that more on Pogba, but yeah, Juventus certainly are responsible. They shouldn't have signed him in the first place.
They really shouldn't.
I said it at the time. It was a crazy decision because they could see his injury record at Man United in his last 2 to 3 years there was you could see this was a guy that was broken physically. Then they give him a contract of 10 million a year on a 4-year contract. So he's been very expensive. The only positive for Juventus is that now with this doping test, which is, they won't admit it publicly, this is actually probably a good thing for Juventus because they've only been paying him 2,400 euros a month since the provisional doping ban. So they don't have to, even if they keep him on his books now for the rest of his contract until 2026, they won't have to. They're just paying peanuts until then. So they release that financial burden, which is important.
Yeah. So and of course
he's gonna. It's almost certain he'll be released now. They just have to legally be. They just need to be legally secure. They'll make sure legally that.
I think they will terminate. I think they'll terminate the contract by mutual consent in the summer. I think he's going to appeal now the 4-year contract. The 4-year suspension, and we'll see where it goes, and if it goes down, and how far it goes, and so on and so forth. But I don't.
I mean, it's obviously very sad, Nima, isn't it? I mean, we have to look at it.
I just don't see Paul Pogba putting on a Juventus shirt ever again.
But it's not just Juventus shirt. I mean, this is his top level career over. I mean,
to be fair,
if it's a 4-year ban, and let me just say, I do think the punishment is very excessive for a first offender for DHEA. 4 years is way too severe. But I mean, I'm sure it will get cut on appeal. But even if it's a 2-year ban, that's his career done. If it's a 2-year ban, he'll be back in September 2025. He'll be 32 and a half.
No, that's his career.
I mean, his career's done.
But to be fair, if we're perfectly honest, his career has been over for a few years, in my opinion. I mean, I think after France won the World Cup, his career was over. He's been the mess.
Well,
that
he was bad at United as well, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't have a good
mess at United that he was there and everything that happened then. And it's a shame because he was a fantastic player when he was at Juve the first spell, and it was what he provides so unique. And that Juve side that he played under, him and Dybala, was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I just think that, you know, in terms of when we look back at his career, obviously he'll be seen as partly an unfulfilled talent, even if he still had a, you know, if we look at the first half of his career, still did so many fantastic things that many players could only dream of doing. It's sad in the sense that his reputation has now been tarnished. I mean, yes, when we've spoken about it, doping is rife in football. Many more superstars that have never been named publicly dope, but Pogba's been caught. This is a stain on his career, and he is. I think he's got to be the most high profile convicted doper in football for, you could even potentially say 30 years since Maradona. I mean, certainly 20 years since Guardiola and like the Dutch players like Stam, De Boer, Davids, when they all got done. I mean, since Guardiola, he is the most. I can't think of anybody else that is a bigger name than Pogba, an international name. Now. So, you know, this is always going to be a stain on him. It is, isn't it? And that, I think that's sad. I think that's sad.
It is sad, of course, especially since it was clearly not, you know, the way when you read more into it, it was a stupid mistake. It was more.
Well, Juventus didn't know anything about it, which I think is what's killed him here, because, you know, he's clearly gone off and he's done this with
he's gone to a doctor who's not been in. Like there was no.
Well, this is this is his defense, yeah.
But it doesn't matter because you're always responsible for what you put in your body, and that's just how it is, and that's how the doping rules are built up. But if you look at it, it's not like he's gone in and tried to, you know, Ben Johnson his way. This was something stupid. This was a mistake, and again, he's responsible for it. But it just reminds me of, you know, when players are desperate and they're so desperate to get back to what they were, that they kind of lose focus a little bit and become a little bit frantic in how they want to get back. And it's sad, but there's no doubt that his career is over. Now, even if he gets a 2-year ban, like, okay, so what is he going to do? Jog on the sidelines for 2 years and then come back to who? Who's going to take him at 32, 33?
No, I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I think it was a cry of desperation that he couldn't accept that his body was breaking down and he couldn't do it and he couldn't accept it. And, you know, it's probably like someone that's getting old and goes to plastic surgery and botches it up even more, you know.
Or like Alexis Sanchez that can't understand that he can't run as quickly as he used to do and still refuses to accept that he's no longer 25, but continues to stand in the, you know, doesn't understand that time waits for no man, and that you have to adapt. I mean, one of the greatest reasons that someone like Ronaldo or Zlatan were able to play, or Maldini were able to play as long as they did, is because they understood that they were getting older and they relied on other things, and they adapted their game accordingly. But with Pogba, with someone like, you know, these guys, they just can't accept reality, and when you can't accept reality, you become desperate, and that's what I'm a little bit worried about. What's going to happen to Federico Chiesa, which is what I was referring to, that he needs to accept that he's no longer a winger. He can't do that anymore, in my opinion. And I don't want to see him piss away the rest of his career.